Hello, my name is Connie Durham, and I'm going to share with you today some powerful communicators for couples. So often we learn all kinds of new things at work, but we don't take the time to pour in to our relationship our very best. So I'm going to give you three things today that can help you in your relationship. And what is more important? You know that old saying, home is where the heart is, and it should be our very best place to be. All right, so here's what I believe. A successful marriage requires falling in love many times, should I say, over and over, always with the same person. And isn't life a lot simpler if it's always with the same person? So today we're looking at, like I said, the communication transformation system, powerful communicators for couples. We're going to look at number one, my side, your side, and then reality. Number two, building that trust is really a must. Number three, let's be real and honest. So in this is for you if you have a great relationship and you want to grow that because it can always be better, right? You and your spouse are absolute opposites. You know, you attract, you get married, and then you start living together. And then, like maybe one super neat and one super messy. And boy, is that some great conflict. You've experienced conflict, frustration, and misunderstandings in your relationship. And haven't we all had some misunderstandings? You say it one way, meaning it this way, and they hear it in the other way. All right. So here we go. First of all, I'm a John Maxwell speaker, and I've actually listened to many, many things all through the years uh, with John Maxwell and read his books, and maybe you have too. But he says connecting increases your influence in every situation. And the truth is that everyone communicates in one way or another, but few actually connect. So, like I said, my name is Connie Durham. Here is my family. The top left, you see all my kids. This is a church. I have three grown kids. You see me there with my husband of 41 years. And to the right of your screen, you see me with my grandkids. And I soon will be adding some more bonus grandkids into that flock. But these are my grandbabies, and they are from 4 to 12 years old. And I'm a proud Nana. At the bottom, you see me with my youngest grandchild, and she's got her little rabbit ears on. That was a fun picture. And then with my oldest grandchild, who's giving me some rabbit ears, and I'm giving her some rabbit ears. Basically, a little bit about me is my background. For 20 years, I taught ballet and jazz, and so I danced. I've always done things that are creative, that I enjoyed doing, and this is what brings me to you now, is that I have developed a passion for couples and a passion for families in the last few years, especially about 10 years back as my kids started to getting married. As they started getting married and um, uh, connecting with other families and their traditions and their things, I started to realize the need for a little bit of help in communication, in understanding, in self evaluation, and thinking about our relationships instead of jumping in there, having babies, working, keeping up with the household, no time for yourselves as couples. These kind of things do not lead to strong relationships. It's got to be a little proactive these days. There's a lot of different things going on, and you got to take time for that relationship. To the right, you see right there, I joined the John Maxwell team a couple of years ago. And the bottom, you see one woman can, and that's the 50th anniversary of Mary Kay Cosmetics. I started with Mary Kay and served 21 years in leadership. And this is where I help train other people in their business and help them get their business started, as well as servicing my own customers and building that business. The young woman there with me is my daughter, and we got to do that together. It's always fun to do things with family. And to the right, you see one of the Mary Kay conventions that I went to. All right, so as we start into powerful communications, I want you to think about leave behind Misunderstanding. Do you ever stop and think about how you and your spouse could be miscommunicating and what that can lead to? You know, the truth is often women say something one way and men say something the other way. And as we go into this today, you're going to see that there's other factors like literally our personality style, our behavior style really puts out there how we will react to different things. And we're going to see that in the third part today. All right, so we want to leave behind conflict, frustration, and we want to restore or create that love, joy, and respect. Every relationship, can have that love, joy, and respect. Some people step into it, they always get along, they understand one another. Maybe they have a great background, which taught them to self evaluate and to pay attention to the things around them and to the people around them, while others maybe weren't taught that. And they really are, maybe their eyes are on themselves and they're not paying attention to anybody else but themselves. And all of a sudden, it hits them like a hammer when that spouse says, I've kind of had it with you and I'm done. Some people will tell you how they feel, when they're upset with you, and other people, they don't show a lot of emotion and they don't tell you. And suddenly, what you thought was just great is not great anymore. So, who's ever had conflict with their spouse or their kids, like daily, right? We have conflict all the time in our families. How about differences in opinions? One sees them this way and one sees them the other way. And then are you able to listen to each other and collaborate? Do you truly listen, making that person feel important and that you care about them, and then evaluate an answer? Or do you have your wall up as soon as they start talking and you're really not even listening? And what brings on most fights? Sometimes it's kids, how we raise the kids, somebody trying to put all the work in the family on one person. When they start to feel overloaded, they start to show that frustration. Money, stress, lack of communication and time. Money often brings on stress. I might think that we can spend money this way and you think we can spend money that way. And we got to bring those things together. So, uh, um, relationships are really about collaboration. And that was one of my words. That was my word last year, collaboration. And that means everybody's ideas coming together and thinking about it, taking time to think about it and what's best, and then making a decision upon that. You can begin to create that family life that you dreamed of by understanding the 4 behavior styles. There are literally 4 behavior styles, and everybody falls into this. Now, you may be really strong in one style, and then you may have some of another style, or you may have a little bit of each style. So I'm going to share that with you on the third part as we get to that today. But the first thing I want to say is when we go into a relationship, don't we bring our best self? You just started dating, you dress your best, you make sure your hair's, groomed and looking good. You wear your better clothes, your better shoes. You bring your better personality and you bring your better manners, right? But then once you get married, or some of y'all might be living together, once you come together, little by little, those things start to go away and we're no longer showing our best colors and our true colors start to show. Did you know that on the peacock, that only the male peacock is beautiful? The female peacock is just plain old gray. She has nothing special looking about her. So guys, this means that you got to be showing your best colors and attracting your female, and you want to continue to attract your female. And I'm sure that's a good idea for the women also. Powerful communicators for couples. Let's think about it. How much do you want your best relationship? Do you ever put any thought into it? Do you do date night? Do you spend some time talking sometimes once the kids have gone to bed? And do you believe that family relationships affect your kids? Say that again. Do you believe that your relationship, how you act in your house, how you handle conflict, frustration, does that affect your children? Guess what? It does. And we all bring into our relationship what we learned at home. So, whatever you learned at home, stop and think about it right now. Is it something you want to bring into your relationship, or is it something that maybe you would like to let go of? So I want you to think about sharpening your saw. Whenever it comes to education, going to college, or you've got a job where you have to continually learn, we think nothing about that. We think nothing about continued education out in the workforce. But sometimes even moms at home need a little continued education. Maybe a group of moms where you share recipes, you share ideas, you share what habits do for you, what list building does for you, how do you handle your chores during the week. But for couples, you want to be able to sharpen your saw. And that means think about your relationship, think about what might need to be changed, and then decide how those changes can come about. And this is before you end up in the counselor's office. I believe in proactive rather than being reactive, right? So in this story, this guy is walking into the woods and he sees a guy sawing down a tree. The man is working and working and working. He's sweating and sawing and pushing it back and forth and sawing. And the guy says to him, "Hey, what you doing?" Of course, the man that's sawing says, "Can't you see I'm sawing down a tree?" And the man who walked in the woods thinks a minute and he says, "Well, have you thought about stopping and sharpening your saw? Your work might go a lot easier." The man cutting down the tree says, "Can't you see? I don't have any time to sharpen my saw." He's really annoyed with the guy for even asking him questions and even suggesting such a thing. Don't we do that in our relationships? Often we're bothered by our spouse asking questions or making suggestions. But if you sharpen your saw, you can surely cut down the tree faster, right? And if you sharpen your skills, your communication skills, you can learn to have your best life and to get along with your spouse in the best way that you can. And guess what? It not only will affect your relationship, but it'll affect how you relate to your kids. If you have teenagers and you're like, "I don't understand my teenager," sometimes you're a lot alike. So you butt heads. Sometimes you're super soft and they're very challenging and direct, and you don't know what to do with them. And this starts really whenever they're small children. So when you learn how to communicate and better with your spouse, you'll also be able to use it with your kids, your friends, your mother-in-law, and at work. All right, so here we go in our communication transformation with powerful communicators. Now I'm going to give you all that I can in this today, and then I'm going to tell you how you can get more if you should decide that that is for you. All right, so number one is your side, my side, and then there's always the reality, right? If you saw a car accident and there was 5 people who saw the same accident from different angles, they would each tell a different story. They would each bring in whatever they know or their background or prejudices or whatever it is, and they would see that car accident differently from 5 different perspectives. So perspective is influenced by your natural behavior style. Sometimes people see things more negatively. They see the glass half empty, and some people see the glass half full. I like to see it 3/4 full at least. So some people are optimists and some people have a tendency to always see what could go wrong. So I want you to look at this picture. And as you look at the picture, look at it for a minute, very quickly, you're going to see something in the picture. And you're going to see, more than likely, one of 2 things. You're going to see an old woman or you're going to see a young woman. Once you see either one, it's hard to re-see it from another perspective. And that's what we're talking about first, right? Is perspective. So it's hard to see it. So let me show you where it's at, because by this time you've seen it. If you saw the old woman, here is her hair. This is her bangs. This back here is her scarf. And this is her nose and her mouth. And here is her chin. This is a little feather up here. And she has her, shawl or whatever on. If you see the young woman, this is like a big, like a bouffant kind of thing on the back of her head. Here is more than her bangs. This is her hair. This is her ear, her chin. This goes in her little nose, her lashes. Do you see that? It's really hard once you see one thing or the other. And this is her neck. On the old lady, this is the chin and mouth, but this is her neck. There's a necklace and a little bit of décolleté, and she has a big feathery boa on, right? So if you're watching this with your spouse, who saw the old woman and who saw the young woman? It's the same picture for all, but we all have different perspectives. Now here's another one. This is one that really happened to me. So I'm texting my husband, and I'm going in, I'm doing a women's event at church, and we're going to do one of those art classes. And so I need a place for the teacher, I need a place for the people, and this has been during COVID. And so we needed to kind of be spaced out where we were not too close together and we wore our mask. Oh, it's so great to get together with real people. Can you relate to that? All right, so here's my picture. To the right, and it says teacher on the top. This is the actual little piece of paper that I grabbed and took a picture and had drawn it out, and I'm telling my husband what I would like. So here is the teacher, here are the two tables. All right, here's my text to my husband. Honey, could you set up 2 rows of V-shaped tables, one in front of the other, for tonight, and cover them with white paper? If you're too busy, it's okay. I understand. That tells a lot about my personality, right? I'm not going to say, hey, you need to get this done. That would be for 4 long tables covered and 1 table up front for the artist. Now, possibly he read the last half and didn't pay as much attention. I was really kind of repeating myself on the text. So here to the left is the picture he drew. And this is how the tables were on the white paper when I got to church that night. This is how the tables were. And I looked, I didn't see his paper and he didn't see my paper. So then I took pictures so I could use it for illustration. Great illustration, isn't it? How husbands and wives see things differently. So the white one you see, it kind of says the same thing, and it's perspective. It's how you hear it, how you read it. Do you read it twice? Do you read it 3 times? Do you just read it once and go for it? Perspective, right? And that goes into behavior styles. Some people are more detailed and really pay attention to the details, and some others don't. So here's what I want you to do when you think about perspective. Remember that word collaborate? I truly believe if we really can think of things from the middle. So take a little bit of that perspective, a little bit of that perspective, think of things from the middle. And if you ever had to go to a counselor, that's exactly what they do, is they don't know you and they don't know you, and they think from the middle, and they start asking you questions and you talk about things, and they can see this side and they can see this side if they're a good counselor, right? So learn to put the shoes on of the other person. I've heard so many times where somebody's like making fun of somebody or gossiping or doing whatever, and they've never had that predicament before. We can't say anything until we have worn those shoes. You ever heard that before? Once you wear the shoes, your perspective changes and everything looks different. The second thing is that family backgrounds, habits, and attitudes come into play. So what's your family background? Was your home a peaceful home? Did people yell at each other? Did people work together on things? Did people help each other? Or was one person in charge and they had to do everything? That makes you real happy, doesn't it? So family backgrounds make a big difference. And like I said at the beginning, you want to think about this. Do I love my family background? What do I bring into my marriage or my relationship that I loved as a kid? What do I bring into my relationship that I like? Do unto others as you want them to do to you, right? So you have your side, my side, and then there's a reality. As a married couple, you can bring in a little of this and a little of that, and it takes communication and talking about it to know what the two of you want to live your life. You only have one life to live. You want to live well, right? So habits we brought from our family. I find for myself that without any habits, I can't get anything done. Without any habits, I'm helpless. And with habits, I have a habit of being helpful, kind, thoughtful to other people, or I have a habit of being the one who always needs things and request or demand things, right? What is your reality? What is your attitude? Do you have an attitude of gratitude? You're thankful for things? Or do you have an attitude that everybody owes me something? What are you going to do for me? Or do you have an attitude of, what can I do for you? And which one is more attractive, right? So, what shapes a personality style? What shapes a behavior style? A kid, from the time they're little, is born, it's heredity. They're born with a particular personality style, a strong little personality style, a soft, easygoing little personality style, a demanding style, a quiet style, a talkative style. It's heredity. Then to the right is environment. It's how you're raised, the environment around you. Were you safe? Um, uh, uh, just that. Did you have a safety in your environment? Was there always an adult there with you? I mean, think about your environment. And then the last part of that is role models. Who do you look up to? Think about that one person now that you're like, man, they changed my life. They got me on the right road. I started moving forward in my life whenever I had that person. A lot of times it's our mom or our dad or an aunt, uncle, grandparent, or that mentor from school or someone else who took you under their wing and they were your role model. You looked up to them and you wanted to be like them. All of these things shape your behavior styles and your personality style. So let's look at this real quick. The first thing is number 3, people can only exhibit behaviors they've experienced in life. And this is something that I realized once my kids got married. There were certain things that went on in their relationships that made me realize that we are who our parents were. Now, you're going to like that or you're not going to like that. But we are who our parents were, who they raised us to be. And if you didn't like that, then you have to figure out how to make changes in that. And only you can make those changes. So, was there kindness in your home or anger? Was there understanding or did you feel abandoned? Did you receive encouragement in your home or did you raise up through the years with distrust? Because if you didn't have kindness, understanding, and encouragement, you maybe began to distrust people. Was there respect between your parents and you had respect for them, or was there hostility between everyone? Let's think about it. Who was the boss? Was there somebody in your family that was an absolute socializer? They loved to be with the people, they loved to talk. Was somebody very direct and loved to challenge? Oops, didn't mean to go that far. And these are the things that I teach in the communication styles. All right, so let's see. Character and habits are ingrained in us, and much more is caught than taught. So, what are your kids catching? That's a big thing. Much more is caught than taught. And you ever notice that a lot of times when people become parents, they're like, I won't be doing that anymore. No, I don't do that. You don't ever want my kids to know I did do that, right? Because I want to raise them differently. What you do speaks louder than words. So we can tell our kids everything we want, but they're going to watch what we do. And remember, I said I have 3 grown kids and I have grandkids, and we don't know these things when we're 30, right? We don't know these things. So learn from me. and make a difference for you and your family. You cannot change your past, can't do it, but you can change your future. And I'll add this, whatever's in your past, whether it's your relationship today or whether it's your parents or a sibling or whatever, unforgiveness only hurts you. I mean, you might hurt the other person a little, but truly bitterness and unforgiveness hurts you. And so figure out how to let go so that you can live your best life. You cannot change your past, but you can change your future. And what would you like that to look like? You are the creator of your future. You decide how you want to live your life. You decide what your household is like. You decide what kind of person you want to be and what kind of kids you want to raise. The only person you can change is you, because it's an inside job. And this is a favorite from Galatians, but the fruit of the Spirit, that which is really inside of us. Who are you inside? Not what you just showed to the public, but when you leave your house, but who are you inside? And I found that sometimes people show their best self out in public, and then they go home and they show who they really are. So it's really an inside job to be the best person that you can. But there's nothing better than the fruit of the Spirit. It's love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All right, we're going to talk in this area about your bank account. Your bank account. We all like to have a lot of money, right? We love it on payday when we're in the green and we have extra money after we pay our bills. We like that. So we like to have a full and positive bank account, right? But what about if you thought about your emotional bank account? And that was making withdrawals from the emotional bank account in your relationship or making deposits. Emotional withdrawals in your bank account are every time you yell at each other, every time you don't take a minute to listen or understand what the other person said. Emotional withdrawals cause frustration. They absolutely cause frustration. And do you want to have a peaceful relationship or a frustrating one? So let's look at some withdrawals. Building trust is a must. When you go to work, there's people that you trust and people you don't trust. And even at home, just like you build trust at work, that's called influence. It helps you move up at work, right? If people can't trust you, you're never going to get anywhere. But at home, it's important that these people, they really know you, that you're not making withdrawals constantly at home. Are you pushy, hot-tempered? Are you controlling? Maybe you don't listen. These things are withdrawals. Unfocused. You can't stay on a task that needs to be done at home, doing what you need to do, your part at home. Maybe you're a time waster, self-centered. You're only thinking about you. Maybe you're loud, unorganized. Maybe you don't speak up and say what needs to be said. That's also a withdrawal. Maybe you're lazy, undependable. Ooh, I hope you didn't get to check any of these off. Because if you are, it is as it is, and it's up to you to make those changes. These things are all withdrawals from your relationship. They make your relationship weaker and weaker. Now, make sure I've got this. I like to talk about the blame game. And this is something that couples do quite often. The blame game. One person blames the other. And I have to admit, sometimes, whenever things don't go right, or maybe I mess something up, I kind of like to blame somebody else rather than taking responsibility myself. But this is a story about two kids on a couch. One is like a 4-year-old. And one is a 12-year-old, and they're laying on the couch. You can picture one, their head at each end of the couch. Their feet are towards each other. The little kid, the 4-year-old, is curled up. He's looking at a video game, and he's not paying attention to anyone else. The 12-year-old on the other side of the couch is watching TV. It's quiet. I'm in my office working. It's easy. It's good. Then I start to hear complaints, and the 12-year-old's like, "Stop touching me. What did you do that for? You're like making me mad." But they were yelling. He was yelling it. I didn't hear anything from the little guy. So I had kind of walked into the room and it continued. The little guy actually was just sitting there and he still was not paying attention to anything the 12-year-old was saying. But what happened there? The 12-year-old probably got bored or frustrated or hungry or whatever. And he just decided to take it out on the other guy. Don't we do that sometimes where we come home from work or we've had a long day? I mean, taking care of kids at home is not the easiest thing. And we blame the other person and we take out our frustration on the other person, even though they didn't do anything. So building trust is a must. And this is the ways that you make deposits into your relationship. And when you make deposits, remember how it feels whenever you deposit money into your banking account. You like seeing those numbers rise and you like having a full account. So being helpful, not being a taker, being helpful, doing your part. Honey, what can I help you with? Being an encourager, being a great listener. Mary Kay Cosmetics, I said, remember that I worked with them for many, many years. And this is one of the great things that Mary Kay said. She said, every person has a sign around their neck. Picture it hanging and it's right here around their neck. And it says, make me feel important. This is one of the biggest things ever, whether it's with your spouse, with your children, because if you listen to them, they feel important and it's a big deposit. You are dependable. You say you'll do something, you make sure you do it. You're honest. You're a collaborator. I'm not the only one that knows what's right. I'm not the only one who has ideas. You have ideas too, right? This is how it's got to be with your spouse. And that's encouraging your spouse and letting them know that you appreciate them, love them, and they're an important person to you. You share things. I'll say when I first got married, I had trouble sharing things. I had a little baby blue Mustang too, and it was my car. And, I don't want to think I was like self-centered or whatever. I did share some things. Well, not a bite of my last bite of cheesecake. I didn't share that either. So I had a little trouble sharing, but I learned to share from my husband. And that's a long time ago. So sharing. Now I'm going to forget the story that I was telling. It's important to be able to share things, whether it's sharing ideas or sharing something you have. Now I remember my Mustang too. So I am a very economical person and want to save money. And when we're first married, you know how it is, making sure that you spend every dollar wisely. Well, my husband was going to a college in Atlanta and he had a large Cutlass Supreme. And that Cutlass Supreme used a lot of gas. And being like I am, he asked me if he could drive my Mustang, and it was a stick shift also. So I thought, I didn't really want him to drive my Mustang. It was my car. But, I started thinking, well, he'll save gas. So like I taught him how to drive the stick and, he saved gas. But I had to learn to share when I got married because I really, whenever I was a kid, here we go, which was a good thing. My stuff was my stuff and my sister's stuff was her stuff. And so we probably shared some things, but that blue car was my car. Anyway, I learned to share. It was all good. But respect. Anything we do for our spouse, encouraging them, listening to them, being honest, being available, it shows respect to one another. How you speak to each other shows respect. And body language and tone of voice are a very big thing. And I use that with my grandkids because I watch them quite a bit. And I'm like, can you say that in another way with a better tone of voice? Of course, you can't actually do that with your spouse, can you? All right. So being understanding and thoughtful and kind. Now, this is something called the crazy cycle. And this pertains to couples. It is from a book called Love and Respect. I want you to picture a hamster wheel going around and around. Can you picture it? That little hamster gets in there and he's running. And where's he getting? Nowhere. Well, couples are the same way. Men typically want respect, and women want to be loved. Now, what happens when the man is not loving and kind and thoughtful and helpful and showing her that he appreciates her? She doesn't feel loved. Now, when she starts to not feel loved, she maybe doesn't show him respect. Maybe he's coming in the door Maybe there's no dinner prepared and he feels a little disrespected. Um, Maybe he wants to tell her about his day and she's not listening. And so maybe she's spending all their income on a credit card. He feels disrespected. So if he doesn't get respect, then he doesn't act loving. And then when she doesn't get love, she doesn't act respectful. And do you see the little circle that goes round and round? And you picture that hamster wheel? This is the most simple concept. And if you can understand it, you can stop it by being more loving or being more respectful. By thinking about it, stopping and thinking about it, this one concept can change many things for you. So the last thing I'm going to show you today is let's be real and honest. And this is all about people, all about people. And today you've looked at powerful communicators, learning to make deposits rather than withdrawals, thinking about perspective and like it's okay if you don't see things the same, but you have to stop and listen to the other person, right? So the next section is a little bit of my program called Communication Secrets for Couples. All right, so behavior, and that's what I'm going to look at first today, is literally the tip of an iceberg. You know how when you see an iceberg and you see the top of the ice? Well, underneath that iceberg, it goes way, way deeper. There's a lot more to that iceberg than you see. That is what I call motivators. And people develop their motivators as kids. And we go back to that heredity thing, but we fall into the mentors and the people around you and your environment. So what did you learn to be motivated by? And you probably haven't thought that much about it. So I teach communication secrets for couples, and it teaches you all about the behavior styles, which I'm getting ready to share a little bit. And then we finish up with motivators. Finding out what motivates you and what motivates your spouse can make a difference for you. So let's look at this. D-I C and S. Actually, it's D-I-S and C. So go around from the red, yellow, green, and the blue, and you've got DISC, D-I-S and C. Well, today I'm going to show you the top part of this and the bottom part as in extroverts and introverts. And that's something that we've always heard. When you think about an extrovert, you think about somebody who's talkative, they take lead, they're usually in leadership, they take command. Maybe you're on a jury and it's that person who takes lead and leads everyone else. A lot of times they are the person who began the conversation. They're not afraid of people, and they are able to move forward in life because they can walk into any situation. They can be in the line at the grocery store and start talking to the person next to them. That's especially the I. They could talk to anyone, all right? But the D and the I are extroverts. Now, if you look at the bottom, the S and the C, they are more introverts. What does that mean? They're quieter. They certainly will talk to you, but they might not start the conversation. Now, as you think about this, who does it make you think of? Is it you? Is it your spouse? Someone else you know? So some people typically are extroverts. Everyone is either an extrovert or an introvert, or sometimes we have a little bit of both. I think I have a little bit of both of those. Now, if you look side to side, on the left-hand side, you see the word task. The D and the C are people who are task-driven. That means that they are going to pay attention to what needs to be done. And they might not pay attention to the people. People, get out of my way. I got stuff to do. These people are task-oriented. When you look to the right side and you see the word people, you see them that beside the I and the S. So the I and the S are people-driven. That means they pay attention to the people around them. It might mean that they get sidetracked from the task at hand because the people are more important. So just these two concepts that you hear from this, whether people are extroverts or whether they're introverts, or whether they are task-oriented or people-oriented. And I'll give you one more thing on this. The D and the I are fast-paced. That means they do everything quickly. The C and the S do everything more methodically. They take their time, they're not in a hurry. And I always like to say on the C and the S, like let's say you have a line of 20 people and you're a cashier and 20 people are waiting on you. For me, I know I get like antsy because I feel like I need to be in a hurry, but if I hurry, I might mess up. So the C and the S, they're going to handle that 20 people line. They're going to take their time. They're going to be methodical. They're going to talk to each person as if there's no one else in the back of the line, and they're going to take care of each person as needed. So introverts, extroverts, people, and task. Those are things that I share in the communication secrets for couples. So you can imagine if you start to learn and pay attention and sharpen your saw, what it can mean to your relationship. So right here I'm showing you, this is a disc graph. I have an assessment, it's called the Hardwire Behavior Blueprint, because each person is literally hardwired. And there's a blueprint that you can print out and look at it. It's like 45 pages with the disc behavior styles and the motivators on that. Or you may be in a program where you just do disc, but this one has your behavior styles and what motivates you. So this right here is the disc. And as you see to the left, the D is a 95 and they got a 65 on the I, 25 on the S, and a 45 on the C. So the top two that are above the energy line, this 50% right here, are the things that this person will more display. So they're going to mostly display D characteristics. And then they're going to display quite a bit of the I characteristics. And these two things go into combination to kind of make their personality style just a little bit predictable. And when you start to learn these things, you can kind of know when someone's talking or how they express themselves. You can kind of figure out how to relate to them better. And this is good with your kids, like I said, and it's great to use at work. All right. The communication styles are not. So what you're looking at right now is not intelligence, it's not motivation, skills, experience, education, nothing to do with training. What if you could recognize people styles and even their why? You could start to understand kind of what they wanted from you or what they didn't want from you. So I'm going to share a little bit more about the D, I, S, and C before we finish. A little bit on that D. Remember that this person was a 95% D? All right. So I told you that they are task-oriented and they're fast-paced. That means they're fast-paced in talking, walking, and their top thing is they are decision makers. So if you have a lot of D in your behavior style, you are probably the decision maker, or you are a quick decision maker. Now, what happens if you have two Ds put together and you're both high in that? There might be a little conflict. It might be with your spouse. It might be with the teenager, and you're both want to make decisions. And you start to learn these things through my workshops and my 6-week class that I offer. So the D is great at handling problems, making decisions, and they love a challenge. So if you are married to a D and they are challenging and you hate challenges, you hate conflict, ooh, you got trouble. So if the D person can learn not to be, so pressing with conflict and to back off a little bit, and then the other style, if they hate conflict, they have to learn that it's not personal. Oh boy, talk about counseling, right? You got to learn it's not personal. And who wants to live in a whole life of people not understanding each other and one person being very direct and straightforward and another person always being the receiver and just feeling crushed? You don't want to have that. Now, the I personality also is very fast-paced, but they are not direct. They're a little more indirect. They like to have a lot of friends. They are all about people, but they're going to talk fast and they talk a lot. Out of all the styles, they talk the most. In fact, they can hardly stand for there to be quiet. Somebody needs to be saying something. We can't just have it quiet. All right. So for those high eyes, yay, you're a great talker. You like bring the people together. But sometimes you got to give other people a break and let them talk too. Everybody likes to be a part of the conversation, right? So they have the power of influence. They are optimists and excited people, and they don't meet a person that they don't know. And then the S style, we talked about the S. They're methodical, easygoing, and they're people persons. Now, what does methodical mean? Methodical means they're going to take their time in making decisions. They're going to walk at a nice, even pace, not too slow, not too fast. And they're going to talk at a nice pace, not too slow, not too fast. But they're methodical, and everything that they do is going to take a little time. The S's don't like too much change. Don't try to change things on them quickly, but they're very relaxed and evenly paced. And then the fourth one is the C personality style. This style also is very task. In fact, this style is so task oriented and so less people oriented. And that's going to mean they don't really like to be around a lot of people. And according to what else is in their behavior graph, their hardwire blueprint, whatever else is in that is going to influence them. If they have a lot of S, then they're going to be a little more people oriented, or I. If they have a lot of D, they're going to be extremely task oriented. If they're D and C, because both those areas are task, and they're not going to be into people that much. When we can start to understand that, it surely helps people get along better, because we are who we are. And I can soften my edges a little bit, but I can't change. I have to live in my natural style at home, right? So the power of rules and procedures. C style people are very analytical, and they read everything and they know all the rules. You know, when you get something and you got to read the directions, the C person reads all the directions. That's not me. So they read all the directions. And methodical, they're the most methodical. They're going to take the longest to make a decision because they got to analyze everything to know what the best decision is. They're going to really take their time when they're moving about. And they're going to be thinking when they're talking. So when the C style is talking, if you're a very fast-paced person, it's a little hard sometimes for you to listen if they're a super high C and maybe a high S also. So they're really methodical, not fast at all. It's hard to listen sometimes because they are thinking between their thoughts. So when they're talking, like my husband shared with me the other day again about whenever he asked me to, my dad, let's get that straight. When he asked my dad if he could have my hand in marriage many, many moons ago, they were watching TV in our den, and my dad stopped. And my husband said he looked at him, and then he looked back at the TV, and he didn't say anything. So my husband's sitting there, you know, that peace and quiet. Oh, it's not peaceful because you're thinking, did he hear me? Is he thinking about it? Does he not like me? Is he going to say no? The time went on. And finally, my dad looked back and said, yes. I don't know exactly what the words were, but my husband was like, oh. But the C personality, if you know they've got to take that time to make decisions, then you might not take it personal like my husband did that day. So they are task-oriented, very methodical, very about the rules and the procedures. And there's so much more to learn about those styles. You can learn the top emotions, how that affects you. You can learn what a person's really needs are, you know, how we refuel, all different kind of things. So powerful communicators. Think about your spouse. Is your spouse fast or methodical? Are they a socializer? Do they make peace in a group, or do they cause conflict? Who is creative, fun-loving, direct, or very factual? That factual would be the C that we just looked at. Find out how opposites can work together. Learn how not to take things personal and think about what causes most conflicts. I have solutions in communication skills. How much do you want your best relationship? And do you believe that family relationships do affect your kids? All right, so you've just been looking at happy couples equal happier kids because I believe that happier couples equal happier kids. And then those happier kids, they grow up and they have happier families. It's like passed on, passed on, passed on. And I like to say we don't know what we don't know until we realize that we don't know it. All right. So today we looked at perspective and how we see things different. We looked at building influence with our spouse because our spouse is just as important as anyone else in the world. In fact, they're more important because they're our happy place. I want to have a happy home, don't you? Deposits and withdrawals. Which one do you make most of the time? And then what did you think about the behavior styles and the communication?